And welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Heather Childers. A judge today sentencing a Florida man to 8 months behind bars for a felony, making it the first case resolved for the January 6th riots. Prosecutors were pushing for 38-year-old Paul Hodgkins to serve 18 months, but worked out a plea deal. Today's sentencing could set the bar for punishments of hundreds of other defendants accused of similar actions. Joining us now to discuss is distinguished university professor at Touro College and author of Saving Free Speech, Thane Rosenbaum. Thane, thank you very much for joining us. So what do you think about this sentence today? 8 months, they were asking for 18.
Well, Heather, there's a good lesson here. He was facing, if he had gone to trial, 20 years and a fine of $250,000. So if you accept a plea deal early, giving the prosecutor's office, very little work to do, and express remorse and contrition, the judge may actually knock an additional 10 months off of the sentence that was recommended by the prosecutor's office. So there's sort of a lesson here. If you want to get it over quickly and admit you're apologetic and remorseful, you will be treated better than if you force the government to go to the distance.
What about what he had pled guilty to? He pled guilty in June to one felony count of entering the Capitol to obstruct Congress.
Right. Well, last month, a woman pled guilty to the misdemeanor of disorderly conduct, and she was given 3 years probation. So they were saying, well, why is that different here? Well, what the court and the prosecutor's office said is, well, he actually entered the Senate chamber. He entered the well of the Senate, and that made a difference. They acknowledge he did not commit any assault, and he did not damage any property. All that he did, which is not nothing, but all that he did was enter the Senate building, and by doing so, he, disrupted the ability of the Senate to certify the election. And so that was the charge of an obstruction of a government proceeding, an official proceeding.
Does it matter if at that point they had already disbanded and they had already left that specific area?
It should. It didn't. I think you're quite right. Very lawyerly there, Heather. Yeah. I mean, in theory, they weren't there. But the government is taking the position that, look, you were part of this an attack on democracy, right? That's what this is being called. This is the flavor of the month. The prosecutor's offices are focusing on this language, attacking our democracy. So even if you attacked it symbolically by entering an empty Senate chamber, it's still an attack on our democracy.
Yeah, we were just showing some pictures of that one protester there. They called him the Shaman or something like that. Yeah. Apparently this individual had taken a selfie within the chamber, and you could see that person in the background as well. So some of that was some of the evidence that was used in court. The majority of these cases, will they be facing charges similar to this person, which is a felony, or the misdemeanor that the other woman that you were talking about pled guilty to earlier and got no jail time?
So, Heather, I think there's about 500 people. That's right. A lot. So my guess is that many of them will be facing felonies. And based on what happened to this woman last month, misdemeanors of essentially disorderly conduct. And they probably will accept a similar deal because now they know that the government isn't seeking jail time in those instances, neither of the judges. Yes, go ahead.
But I was going to say no charges of insurrection.
Well, that's not necessarily true, Heather.
Okay.
See, we have other charges. For instance, the violent entry and destruction and breaking and entering of a federal building. That's a very different felony. That is much more severe. And again, in this case, that didn't happen because the prosecuting office said, well, he didn't commit any assault or any damaged property. There are charges against people who actually assaulted federal officers or Capitol officers. And of course, there's still the possibility, which the Shaman might receive, is this really serious charge of seditious conspiracy. And that would be the most serious of that, a conspiracy to overthrow the government.
Well, we will keep an eye on it. Thank you very much, Thane, for joining us. We'll be back with more right after this. Stay with us.